Hey everybody, welcome to the shop. So today we're going to do some knockdown of sheet goods in order to work on our cases for our kitchen that we're building. So I'm going to be dragging in some sheets. I'll go through how I would normally lay out and knock down my sheets after we figured out what all we needed out of the cabinet planning software, and then get those ready for future processing. We'll go through kind of how I bring the sheets in, how I lay them out, and then some alternatives to do it in a more economical way if you don't have necessarily all the tools that I have available to me. So stick around, we'll go through that and pick up some ideas. All right, now we're going to knock down some sheet goods. So typically I will bring them into the shop. I've got the garage door right there. I'll use this table. I'll slide them out of the bed of my truck onto here, and then I stack them up against, actually that's the kiln that's sitting up against right now. That's actually behind me. That's my wood storage and kiln back there. But this allows me to pull individual sheet off the truck, bring it over, tip it down, stack them up in there. Like this job that I'm currently working on is about 10 panels for just the sides. The melamine is kind of heavy. They're about 90 pounds a sheet. Some of the other plywoods will be maybe close to 40, 50, maybe 60 pounds a sheet. But melamine is really heavy and hard to manage. So this particular table works really nice for me, albeit expensive. There's a lot of other alternatives in there, but because I use this almost daily on my job sites, it's pays for itself for me. Most people wouldn't. So after I get my, like this melamine is 97 by 49, I'm going to rip this in half on this particular cut so that I have 24.5 inches. I'm not going to final dimension. I'm actually just getting them roughed out so that I can have, I don't want to use any factory edges in any, generally for anything. Sometimes I'll use it if it's on the back of something, but generally I'm going to cut all four of them on the table saw or use the track saw to cut them up. So now I'm going to refer back to, I've pulled out the sheet, figured out what's all going to go onto that panel, and then I start doing my layout from there. So whether it's, so if I'm cutting it, like this one might be a side for a base. It's 30 inches because of the way I build these. Then I don't put an integral base in them, I put legs on it. We'll talk about that more later. So I might make this at 31, 32 inches, and then I'll rough those out. So this one I'm going to get 3 pieces out of it, and then so once I've got this, then what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'll get out the labels, and then I'll start putting those on so that I know exactly which piece, once these get cut out, because once they're cut out they're really hard to keep track of. If I'm in the middle of a job, I will try to get all the bases cut out and rough all my original pieces out. Generally at the same time. It gets to be a lot of material sometimes in a small shop to try to deal with that, but I'll get these all labeled out and get them cut. But then now I know what they are. So on the label, may have not talked about a whole lot, but it'll tell me if I was doing multiple jobs, it would tell me which job it is. It's going to tell me what cabinet goes to, what part it is, whether it's a side or a bottom or a back or whatever it is. So I'll know exactly, and what size it is. So now I've taken it off the, done a rough cut out, and what I'm going to do is I did make one single cut, very thin cut, just to get it. Then I'm running up against the fence, and that fence I will, if all possible, I will set that fence once and do like all of my sides. So when this comes out, all of my sides are identical. And that was kind of the thing I talked about earlier, was regardless how you do this, having that consistent piece sizes in your width and depth is really important. So so that's how I typically do it. So a couple other ways we can do this. We can, if you don't have the track saw, if you don't have, even if you just have a normal circular saw, this is one of the options. This is something made by Craig. You can mount your saw on this. I think these are about 80 bucks. It's kind of a cheaper version of a track saw. It'll do the job. One of the things I'll tell you, especially on melamine, and if you're using good plywood, is spend some money on a good blade that is appropriate for what you're cutting. There's a lot of different blades out there. I use a lot of Diablos, and I've been really happy with them over the years. I think I think actually, with the exception of some of the Festool stuff that I own, everything, my table saw, all my other saws will have Freud Diablo blades in them, and I've been really happy with them over the years. They do a really nice cut. This is from Rockler. It's just a clamp-on system, so you can just use basically your saw. So you're not clamping. The other one, you were clamping your saw to the guide. This one, you're just setting up a guide, but you need to do with this one, you have to do the offset. So if you're in here, you need to offset and do it that way. So doesn't really, it adds a little bit more work to it. Here's another one, and I can't remember the manufacturer. These actually clamp on, and then it's similar to the other ones, but there's a bunch of different ones out there, and you're probably in that $80 to $100 range to do that. And then from there, here's another track or another table. This is Rockler makes this. It's actually a pretty good table. I think these are $300. This actually will bevel, or it'll tip up, so you can again offload from your truck, tip it up, bring it through even just a garage, a service store, and move it around. And they've got plans. You can put a little table down, or a little storage underneath that. These will work really nice, and they're adjustable in height. So these are actually, had I not looked at the table I got, this is probably the one I would have went with. So this is the table that I actually use. This is the way it comes. This will do up to the large format European plywood, which I believe is 7 by 7. I'm not 100%, but I know, like when I do a lot of Baltic birch, it's 5 by 5. So these are about 4 feet, and then they extend out in all 4 directions. And then when it's done, it folds up. Again, this is a really expensive tool at about $1,000. If you don't want to use the clamp-on or even a nice piece of straight board to do your cuts, there is some track saws. This is probably the cheapest track saw. When I found it on Amazon with a track, ran $115, $120. It is a lower end saw. But it's got a track that it goes onto, and it's an option. You could probably get by very well with this if you put a good blade on this one. Makita, another track saw. I think this one is in the $300 range. And then tracks. And the one thing is, some of the tracks, I believe it's the Makita and the Festool will interchange. DEWALT will not. So you can interchange some of it. And there's Grizzly makes a track saw. Triton makes a track saw. There's a lot of them out there, and you're going to go from that low end at about $115 to quite a lot more than that. This is actually the one that I have. It's a battery powered one. I think the saw without any batteries, without any track, is I think close to $500. I use this all the time on the job site, so I can justify that kind of cost on it. So that gives you some ideas of what you can do if you're just breaking down goods. Like my flow is normally I will break them down on the table, get them to rough dimensions, and then I'll take them to the table saw and use my cabinet saw does have a sliding table on it that I can trim up and get all 4 sides so that I know that it's square and I got a clean edge, so that we can move forward and start processing our goods from there. All right, now that we've got all our sheet goods broke down and cut into their final sizes, we can start doing some additional processing. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about edge banding in the next video, and then we'll continue moving forward from there. So we'll see you next time.